All right. The second big film I saw of Biff was Pacification by Albert Serra. And similarly to EO, I really like this film. Um, Particularly the way that it was shot visually was really captivating to me. It fit the mood that I like. I mean, I'm coming in with a huge bias because I love Albert Serra, so it's kind of tough to like I was already going into it knowing I was going to love it, kind of. But I mean, the lighting was just so interesting. It was just so unique because it. I feel bad saying this because it like it's so cliche sounding, but the synth wave kind of fad, which is kind of dead now, I guess, but like the last 10 years or so. I mean, it really had that kind of strange look to it. It was like really soft but natural lighting. Um, Lots of like dimmed reds and sharp whites. Um, but it would like fluctuate between like this soft synth wave 80s kind of like soap opera almost softness. Um, and then to like hard digital like superimposition looking stuff almost, if that's even the right word. I mean, it looked green screened. I don't know if it actually was or not in some a lot of stuff, but it was so like digital looking. Um, so it's just like such a weird combination of styles, I guess, to me at least. I haven't seen anything like that, and that created the mood um that was propped up by the story and the characters. I thought extremely well. I mean, it's just so like languid and slow and sleazy and like you know. I mean, I think he said this before, so and I have a million people are gonna say this, but it's like very polished, clean look on top of like sleaze. So it's like covering garbage with like a gold spray paint kind of thing. And that's like kind of the mood that I got. And I don't know how exactly that incorporates into those two styles that I was talking about visually, but I think that there's something there. Um, for the character, obviously, the main character, I forget his name, and the actor, but man, he had such a great face, just holding this one expression the whole time. Whereas, like, I can't tell if it's Botox or if he's just like permanently got this kind of smug, like it even seems smug. It was just like a disinterested. I don't know how to describe it. It was such a. It was a such an interest. It was like mouth open. It's like he's trying to understand, like looking, concentrating with his eyes, trying to understand. But um, yeah, which was strange because his character, like, I feel like you go into it expecting his character to be like a smug, like sleazy piece of garbage because of the movie's aesthetic and like the way that's presenting all these themes and stuff. But he's really not. He's very like I mean, he has like one big monologue at the end where he kind of lets this all out, which is kind of like where he does have this aura of superiority and like he's the hunter. Yeah, that's another thing, really big like hunter prey aspect in it, where really, I feel like he's pretending to be the prey the whole time. Yeah, prey the whole time, but then that one monologue, he's like, "I'm actually the hunter." Um, but you really don't like dislike the character at all, and or at least I did. So yeah. But anyways, yeah. Another thing stylistically with that hunter prey aspect, it's kind of like a pseudo jungle in this island. And then you have one of the mainstays in the whole movie is like this white car, this white, rich, very clean car that him and he's he drives around in. His driver drives him around it, but it just drives very slowly through all these like uh, long shots, and it's really just like a hunter in the jungle, kind of just like this car just slowly moving around with its like bright neon or bright fluorescent LED. I don't know, bright like kind of blue tinted lights from this like supremely clean car. Yeah, it's a great addition to the kind of mood. And then he himself is in the same white suit all the way up until the end, where you finally actually, yeah, it's interesting. You finally actually get him hearing him talk to his secretary, his new secretary, and he's like writing, and he's got a different shirt off like the first time, and it's like an open Hawaiian shirt, and you see a tattoo, which I thought was really interesting, and that's when he's kind of monologuing a bit. Um, it's not like his big monologue, but it's kind of like he's more, yeah, that's like his predator kind of coming out, I guess, or revealing itself. But yeah, otherwise he's very reserved. There's two great, beautiful moments in the film that really, I think, to me, make the whole film. The first, which is I know everyone's going to talk about, but that wave scene where they're all out on the out on the coast, and there's these big, I mean, big waves coming around and crashing out in the ocean, and you see like a whole bunch of boats littered with like people on it, and it's just so starkly shot, and then the music is so intense. It's just like, oh, it's so good. It's beautiful. It's really like I was like leaning in. I was like leaning forward in my seat because it was so intense. It was like this really like, also because the music was, I don't even remember any music before that. I'm sure there was, but I just don't remember it. I mean, there's techno music in the club, and that goes back into it later, but like it's just like a loud, like otherworldly horror music out of nowhere when you're watching these waves and these people. Um, yeah, it's such a good use of music, and the shot itself is incredible. Yeah, I really loved it. And then the other one is another one based on the music, which similar to EO, I think is the right now the only thing separating interesting movies from boring movies is like their use of music almost and color, I guess. But then later on, he's in a football field alone with like light rain, and the football field is like has that kind of that huge floodlighting on it, and he's just standing there in the rain, just like letting the rain hit him. And then the American guy, who's kind of like his enemy at this point, is watching him, kind of off in the distance, but I mean like very visibly there. Uh, and so it's like the shot of him like in the middle of the field, and then the shot of the American like kind of close to the camera, like back here. And again, the music, it's kind of like slow techno-y, and then all of a sudden it has like this tiger roar, kind of animal predator roar as he's like got his mouth open. It's like, yeah, it's a bit on the nose. I'll give it that, but to me, I don't know, it worked for me. And that location is just so cool. You rarely ever see kind of the alone person in a football field. Um, and I think that's great. Great location, underused. It reminds me of like when I was a teenager, being at baseball fields at night with that huge lighting. There's something about that scenario, that setting that is very unique. It feels to me. Yeah. Um, and So yeah, I thought yeah, it's very long, very slow, very. I think I'm not sure how I feel about because oh yeah, when I was in that football field scene, I was like, this is like a dumb spy movie. It's like a it's like a very pathetic spy movie between these two groups, these small little groups on this island that nobody cares about really. And so yeah, I don't know. It's just like these old guys, kind of like yeah. It's just that's just what thought of the my head. Like this is like a pathetic spy movie in the best way possible because I think the patheticness adds to the kind of thing that the whole mood movie is going to for. Um, but yeah, I love being in that area. It is such a cool location. I mean, you're with the main guy for the whole time. He's in almost every scene, I think, and yeah, his facial expression really carries the whole movie. Just great kind of reserved acting. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that really stand out, but that's it for now, in terms of like what really stood out to me. Those two scenes, the music in those scenes, that dynamic of like soft natural lighting and hard digital shots. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Another, I guess, big theme that was there was kind of like the rot, which is one of his, I think, long running themes in all his films, like in Death of Albert, wait, Death of King Louis, King Albert, Death of the King 14, one of the kings. It was like kind of the rot of the body, like the king was literally dying. His body was literally rotting from something, I forget what it was, gangrene, I think. And then in Liberté, it was like the rod of time, or at least that's how I saw it uh, after reading a few, scholarly articles. But yeah, and then this one, I guess, is kind of like the rod of architecture, is how I was seeing it initially, or the rod of like buildings in particular. I mean, they kind of outright just state that, so I'm sure I'll probably have to revise this later because it's too obvious, and nothing's ever that obvious. But yeah, it's like the nightclub was such a mainstay, and then you had like these kind of like the hotel itself, although you never really saw much of the hotel, which was kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, the nightclub is so. I mean, he kind of says this later when he's talking about like politics of politicians. He's like they're all blind in the dark. I'm gonna go in the dark in the like I don't know if he says in the nightclub or not, but like uh yeah, and then he's like I'm gonna go turn on the lights and like kind of let the rats scatter and stuff. And I think that kind of like carries out the whole movie of like they're going to this nightclub to kind of be seedy and disgusting, and then I think the best example was then countering that with the early scene where they're all in the um, hotel meeting with the tribal leaders, whatever. They're talking about the nuclear, whatever. Um, but yeah, and it's a very nice, they're all very prim and proper and kind of stuff like that. And they're all very nice and negotiating. And then in the nightclub later, everyone's kind of like, disgusting and sexualized. And yeah, a lot of sexuality and just like, well, it was interesting. There's only like one explicit scene of sexuality, which is just kind of out of nowhere. It's like this big, huge, fat guy grabbing the neck of this slender woman, and she's like getting a lot of pleasure from that. But it's just like 10 seconds, and it's just the main character is just looking around outside. And you think he's just like, oh, what's that? But yeah, everything else, all the sexuality is kind of like innuendos, people in the club, and then just like straight up, you know, the top half of the body being revealed. So yeah, I don't know. There's something kind of there, maybe potentially, but anyways, to the architecture point, but yeah, later on, kind of like how later on he reveals his kind of hunter side. You know, they walk through the ruins of some of the older buildings, um, and yeah, just kind of that replacement of like the current build, or I don't know, replacement of status or something, because he's kind of like getting sidelined is what his worry is. So he's like, you know, the nice, he's in the white suit, prim and proper. I gotta stop saying that. Like the night, or well, not like that, like the hotel, I guess, or like the nice buildings currently active right now. But then you look in the past, and there's like a whole graveyard of people like him, represented by these like older clubs. I think one of them was a club that's like all dilapidated, completely gone and stuff. And I think at one point they say like, "Oh, it's a shame to let this uh, building go to waste." Yeah, so I guess there's something to do. What my interpretation was, it's something to do with particular like architecture, a lot of architecture, and like status, and then the person attached to that. I'm really resistant to kind of get into any political issues because I don't understand of it, and I don't really think that's what he's. I didn't get any like real particular political impression. It was all just kind of like people kind of exchanging this role of hunter and prey that's like really prominent throughout the whole movie, and then kind of out with the old, in with the new, architecture, people, status, something there, kind of weaving in and out. But really, I think visually, it just kind of, I think that what that allows, like that, the architecture thing and the hunter prey thing allow for is kind of the slow creeping feel, uh, punctured by moments of like attack, like the wave scene and like the scene on the football field, which is really emphasized with the music. Um, yes, I think that if I did have any complaints about the film, it was perhaps that the pace, I don't know, it works to the mood of being like a slow, kind of lurching decay, but it still may have been a bit too slow of pace in general, with I think like maybe perhaps too many filler scenes that weren't adding to the atmosphere, but were rather just kind of political talking. And like I said before, I was really hesitant to kind of add any political angle to it because for me, it's just you know, like a mood piece and with like these puncturing moments. And I think that the political talk is just that. It's just talk. It's kind of like empty gesturing, and the film is kind of just playing out for these people rather than any type of political message. But yeah, that would be kind of my only, I guess, concern now that I think about it and talk about it a bit more. Um, yeah.